Hey everybody and welcome to Breaking Biotech. Thanks for being with me here today. My name is Matt, and if you like the show, you can help out by clicking the like or subscribe button. You can also donate using the Patreon link in the description below. So I'm glad to be back, and I've got a great show for everybody today. I am pleased to welcome Sean McClain, founder and CEO of Absci. Sean, how you doing today?
Great, Matt. How are you doing? Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Yeah, I'm doing well. And yeah, I appreciate you coming on. The synthetic biology space is really getting interesting, and I thought it would be awesome to have somebody who's really in the thick of it to tell us a little bit about the exciting things going on at Absci. And I think what might first be interesting is if you could give us some background on the company. I know you're the founders. If you could give us some background on how the idea of the company kind of came about and maybe the goals, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I'll start off with our mission and vision. Our mission is to change the world one protein at a time with the vision of becoming the Google index search of protein-based drug discovery and biomanufacturing. And so what does this actually do? It allows us to get the absolute best drugs to patients at truly unprecedented speeds. We're a mission-driven organization that's looking to change the paradigm of drug discovery and biomanufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we rewind the clock 10 years to where Absci began, it began at the University of Arizona. I was studying molecular biology and biochemistry and got really obsessed with synthetic biology and how we could be using synthetic biology to change how we do drug discovery and biomanufacturing. And if you looked at the history of biotech, it began with Genentech, and Genentech's first product was insulin. And the way they made insulin was in E. coli. And then, as you know, the industry shifted to monoclonal antibodies, and Genentech tried to produce a monoclonal antibody in E. coli, and it just wasn't capable of producing it. So they switched to mammalian or CHO cells. But by making that transition from E. coli to mammalian cells, development times dramatically increased, as well as the costs. And that's where I was like, if we could figure out a way to engineer E. coli to be more mammalian-like, that'd be a huge game changer in getting drugs to patients quicker and lowering the overall cost. And so I ended up coming up with this crazy idea, graduated a year early from school, and moved back in to my parents to get the company started. And bless her heart, my fiance at the time moved in with my parents, and all of her paycheck was going in to support lab rent, lab supplies, and spent 18 months doing the proof of concept, showing that we could actually engineer E. coli to produce a monoclonal antibody, which had never been done before. And that was really that initial breakthrough. And that's really just the seed of what Absci has blossomed into. And we've hired amazing talent here to really take it to the next level. And where we're at right now is taking the technology that's been developed over the last 10 years. And one of the really exciting parts is being able to generate billions of different data points on protein functionality or drug functionality, as well as manufacturability. And we're feeding in all of this data into our AI deep learning models. And essentially, we're merging AI and biology together to ultimately be able to predict the absolute best drugs for patients, given based on their target or indication. And so that's where we started and where we're headed. I would say it's very similar to how Tesla started it. They started out with an electric car. They started collecting all this data, built an AI team around it, and now they're going fully autonomous. And it's a kind of a similar type of story to where Absci is headed. And so it's really exciting where we're headed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like there's a lot going on. And so the core offering that you guys have, it's based off of your SoluPro E. coli strain. Is that what you kind of refer to as your integrated drug creation platform?
Yeah, so our integrated drug creation platform consists of 5 core technologies, and it takes the SoluPro E. coli strain that I had developed back in the day, and it pairs it with our truly breakthrough assays that allow us in a single experiment to screen for the protein functionality and the manufacturability, so tighter quality and and titer, and essentially being able to do drug discovery and cell line development in one fell swoop. And that's really the integrated drug creation platform. And we started generating all this data from this platform. And we knew that we could apply deep learning to all of this data. And when you compare like our screening throughput in the billions, it's a huge advancement from where the industry is at today. If you look at these new next gen biologics, they're maybe able to screen in maybe thousands to tens of thousands of drug candidates that ultimately go into patients. We can do it in the billions. But if you look at an antibody sequence, there are more sequence variants in an antibody than there are atoms in the universe. So when you compare atoms in the universe to billions, the billions kind of fails in comparison. And so that's what we're using the AI and the deep learning to do, is basically sift through all of these potential possibilities for drug candidates and ultimately predict the best drug candidate for a given target.
Right. Okay. So it's all kind of layered onto the SoluPro, and you guys have made some acquisitions that have contributed to that. But I think to make it a little bit easier for those who might not be super well versed in drug manufacturing, what is it that E. coli can do that, say, mammalian cell line doesn't, that would make it more attractive? And I know there's technical hurdles that you guys have overcome to express an antibody in a prokaryotic system, but what makes E. coli better than a mammalian system? Is it really just cost?
So it's cost. So you can get cost of goods reductions of 50 to 75%.
Wow.
But it really comes down to the engineering of E. coli is a lot easier. Like the ability to screen billions of cells in a given experiment, you couldn't do that with mammalian cells. You could only do that with prokaryotic. It's a very simple organism to work with and engineer. So the data that we get, we would not be able to get that if we were not in E. coli or prokaryotic system. And then additionally, it's the cycle times. The cycle times compared to E. coli versus mammalian, it's a huge difference. With E. coli, you have fermentation run times of 1 to 2 days versus mammalian cells, it could be 14 to 21 days. And so you can move much faster with a prokaryotic system than you could with a mammalian system. And I truly believe that if Genentech had our technology back in the day, we would have never shifted to mammalian cells. We'd still be with E. coli.
Really? Yeah. It makes you wonder, right? Well, you guys have done such an interesting job to make it possible, which I don't think people would have expected. And I'm kind of curious. I don't know if you can share anything about this, but any of the insights into how you made it possible? Like, what did you change? Can you tell us anything about what you changed with E. coli to make it possible to do this?
Yeah, it was pretty simple. We looked at what were the major differences between a prokaryotic cell and a mammalian cell, and we then mimicked what was in a mammalian cell and put that into E. coli, and basically had the machinery in E. coli that could produce these complex therapeutic proteins. So being able to really slow down transcription and translation, make sure that the right chaperones, these proteins that are important for making other proteins, were inside the cell. And so we are essentially just mimicking a mammalian cell in E. coli.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It sounds, when you explain it, it sounds easy, but I'm sure like when you were at the lab at year 1 or 2 of the company, it was probably a pretty daunting task.
Yeah. I think everyone initially thought I was crazy for even trying to see if it could work. But it ended up, working. And these are the types of problems and challenges that we solve at Absci on a daily basis. We have a mantra, and our core value is believe in the impossible. I tell our employees all the time, if you don't believe that we can accomplish it or that you can accomplish it, you're never going to. And so it first starts with that mindset of actually believing you can.
Sure. Okay. So then layered on top of the SoluPro, you're talking about the assays that you have to really evaluate all these different cells and cell lines, and then AI plays a role as well. And I think on one of the events that you guys did, I heard about how you're using AI not just to kind of not just for predictive of your molecules, but also using AI to take information from patient data to try and find targets that way. Is that true?
That is true. So we recently acquired a company called Totient, and Totient had a really exciting technology on being able to take patient samples and be able to then use that to find new drug targets to go after. In the industry right now, we're going after 15 to 20 targets, and we need to find new targets to build new drugs against if we're really going to solve the various diseases and cancers that are out there. And when utilizing their data, we can feed that into our deep learning models. And essentially what we want to do is take the patient samples and then be able to predict the targets that we should be going after with drug design.
Mm-hmm. And then you can leverage the deep learning capabilities to help with that as well?
Exactly.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, and I think, it'll, as these programs kind of develop more, we'll get a sense of kind of how it does play out, which I think investors are very excited to see. I wanted to shift gears, though, and talk a little bit more about your active programs. So I think your 10Q mentions that you've got 9 active programs with 7 partners. And if I look down the list, some pretty big names: Merck, Sanofi, Astellas, Phase Bio. Amongst all these different ones, I mean, does anything stick out as being, really exciting for you that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we currently have 2 programs that are in the clinic. One that's in phase 3, and the other that's in phase 1. And we're really excited about where these sit, especially with the one that's in phase 3. In the next couple of years, we could have an approved product on that and be receiving royalties on that. And so from just a technology validation standpoint, as well as being able to monetize that, it's a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah, so the phase 3 one in particular, I guess this is kind of an interesting use case. So the partnership here, is it kind of like Absci is offering to produce the molecule that will be used in the phase 3 with a more streamlined, efficient manner, and then the company can choose to exercise a license and use your cell line or your capabilities to produce it as an approved product or for their phase 3 trial. Is that kind of how it goes?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the really exciting aspect of our technology is we're able to meet our partners where they're at. So the same platform that can be used to design a better cell line for a company that's in clinical trials that needs to increase the overall titer and quality to ultimately make it economically viable is the same technology that can be used to discover brand new drug assets along with the associated cell line. So we can really meet their needs where they're at, or if they need a new target to go after, we can help them discover that target and then have that fully integrated end-to-end solution for them. And in this case, for the phase 3, we were looking to increase the overall titer and quality in order to make it economically viable for them once the drug was approved.
Mm-hmm. And then you have to maintain quality too. So it's not just increase the amount, but also maintain all the specs, right? Which seems like a large task, but that's what, that's why you guys are where you are, right?
Yep.
Fair enough. So the other thing I wanted to ask about in reference to the programs is I noticed that the Astellas partnership is listed as discovery, which I think has investors very excited because the discovery part seems to be a bit of a newer offering for the company. Can you share any details about that, kind of like the pathway or the indication that you guys are looking at? And maybe what are the deliverables from Absci? Is it like you have to produce 20 targets for them, or are they kind of involved in that whole process to select targets?
Yeah, so when we initially rolled out our screening assay, these breakthrough assays, at first we were using it for cell line development, being able to screen for the titer and the quality. And we ended up finding out that we could actually look at the affinity as well, so the drug functionality. And that was like that big breakthrough moment where we're like, wow, we can simultaneously do drug discovery and cell line development at the exact same time, and ensuring that whatever we do discover is actually manufacturable. Because one of the dirty secrets in pharma is that you can discover these really exciting new drug candidates, but ultimately they can't progress to the clinic because you can't manufacture it. And so we rolled out this technology earlier this year, our drug discovery capabilities earlier this year. And Astellas was an existing partner of ours that we're doing cell line development with. And they saw the value that we brought there, and we were able to ink our first drug discovery deal with them. And in this case, we were optimizing the molecule. So they already had the candidate discovered and the target they were going after, and we were essentially making that drug candidate have better properties, whether there was the manufacturability or affinity of that, and so we're really excited to continue that partnership with them. And unfortunately, I can't talk about the exact indication that it's going after, since it is preclinical right now. But as it progresses through the clinic, definitely we'll get to see what that indication is.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. That's helpful for us to get a handle on what the market's looking at in terms of your discovery platform and what they see as the real value. So yeah, I kind of want to ask you about. This might be a difficult one to answer, but I think I noticed in the 10Q you mentioned that 4 of the active programs have clinical commercial terms agreed upon, but the licenses haven't been exercised yet. Can you give us a sense at all of what sort of revenue jump we would be looking at, even in just general terms, on if a license was exercised?
Yeah, so if a license is exercised, you're going to receive an upfront payment or an exercise fee, and then you're going to receive milestone payments throughout the clinical trial. So at IND, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then ultimately sales milestones upon approval, and then you'll see royalties associated with that as well. And so we like to look at it on from an NPV basis. What's the NPV per program, and that includes the the probability adjustment there. And so the great thing about this is that everything once the license is exercised, that's 100% pure margin. Even if the drug fails in phase 2, the payments that we got there were 100% pure margin for us, and I think that's really an exciting aspect of the business model that we have here, is we get to share in our partners' success.
Yeah, and you do all the work up front, and then hopefully if things move in the right direction, you can just collect afterwards. But I think getting them to exercise on that license is a pretty critical part. And, one question I have for you also is, if you deliver on what was set out in the terms and the technology agreement, are you pretty confident that they would exercise a license if things work out? And there's a number of different priorities from these pharma companies, right? But if you deliver and the results are good, are you confident they would just go ahead and exercise that license?
Yeah, there wouldn't be a reason why they wouldn't, exercise the license. There are times when certain, assets get reprioritized, and so they could end up, selling that asset or killing that asset, and it wasn't in regards to our technology. It was just they don't want to go after, this particular target, anymore. And so there's a lot of reprioritization that goes on, which we can't control, and that's why we're really focused on just growing the number of partner programs per year. And that's really our focus, is getting as many as we can, as rapidly as we can. And it's a law of large numbers. And once you start building that critical mass up, that's where you really start to see the value of our platform.
And yeah, I mean, biologics are such a huge market now. It just seems like you guys have your pick to just go after all these companies. I mean, once the business development team is built out sufficiently, but it seems like there's a ton of upside in there. Okay, one other question I had for you. I think the number of cumulative programs you guys have done is like 30 or so. Do you have a sense of why some of those programs, when they ended, they didn't renew, or those didn't turn into license agreements?
Yeah, so those were initial, what I'll call, proof of concept programs where we weren't working on a clinical stage program. It was just to see how the technology would perform in general. And we were successful on all of these programs, and they've led to more deals with those partners, or have given us data to get new partnerships. And so that really shows again the breadth of the technology. We were successful on all of those. We've worked on almost every type of biologic under the sun that you can imagine, and have been successful with that. And with every new program we work on, we learn something new. Our AI learns something new. We also are able to add new tools to the toolkit to be able to be successful on the next program. And so we've been really excited about the success that we've had on all these programs to date.
Okay, very cool. All right, I wanted to shift gears briefly, and one slide that you have in your corporate presentation that is nice is that you show all the competitors in different spaces kind of adjacent to synthetic biology. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the differentiating factor that you guys have over another company that might want to think about getting in the space. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, it's all about the data and the breakthrough assays that we have.
Yeah, okay.
No one has the ability to screen in the billions, looking at the protein functionality and manufacturability that we do. And that's what we're then feeding into our deep learning models. And that's actually why we're able to recruit the best AI talent in the world, is because we have that data, and they see us being able to go fully in silico with this data, and they want to be a part of that. And so that's really what's allowing us to have that huge competitive advantage, and allowing us to ultimately achieve being fully in silico. It's like Google. No one's going to displace Google, because they have the data and the pipeline of data coming in, and it's very similar to what we have here at Absci.
Okay, very cool. That's good to know. Yeah, can you give us a sense of what the company is going to be focusing on for like the rest of the year, and then maybe something that we can look forward to in 2022?
Yeah, so we are heads down executing on increasing the number of programs. We're on track to hit the 5 programs that we have projected throughout the rest of this year, and a great pipeline building up for next year. And we're continuing to feed in data into our deep learning models to help us get more and more predictive on the new drug candidates we discover in the associated cell lines. And we're going to see the model get more and more predictive over time, and we're going to be sharing with investors the progress that we're making each year on that, and the number of programs that we're growing. But those are really our main focuses, is feeding in as much data as we can to our deep learning models, at the same time increasing the number of programs as rapidly as we can.
Yeah, that seems to be the key to really getting that long-term recurring revenue, is just the more programs, more chance of a license exercise, and then it becomes pretty easy. I was kind of curious though, given that you have all these capabilities for drug discovery, do you ever think of Absci starting your own internal drug development programs, or maybe a biosimilars franchise, anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one of the strategies that we do have is to develop some of our own assets up to IND. And in particular with the Toshint technology, when we are discovering some of these new targets, they have to be validated. And we see us validating those targets and developing new drug assets towards those, and taking them to IND, and then out licensing them at that point in time, and have much higher upfront milestones and royalties associated with that. But we never plan on becoming a clinical stage biotech company. That's a completely different skill set. We're focused on bringing the technology to our partners for discovery and biomanufacturing. and letting them do what they do best, which is clinical trial design and the commercialization. So it's really that
Yeah.
great partnership there.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. That's pretty much all the questions I had. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you think would be important for investors to know?
I guess I'll just highlight again, really the vision that we have
Mm-hmm.
is becoming the Google index search of drug discovery and biomanufacturing, where we can take a target sequence and be able to predict the absolute best drug candidate and the associated cell line to make that drug candidate literally all at a click of a button. And that's really the paradigm change that we see, and really the holy grail and the ability
Mm-hmm.
to ultimately change the world. And we're really excited about that, and couldn't be more excited about where we're at, especially coming off of the IPO. We now have the capital, the talent to really see this vision through. So super excited about where the future is headed for us.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to see what happens too, because there's definitely a huge value prop here that I think, I mean, for the entirety of biologics, you guys could really provide some value here. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out. Is there the company's name is Absci. Sean, do you have a personal Twitter or anything you want to share?
I do. I have a Twitter account at Sean R. McClain.
Okay. Awesome. Great. So everybody check them out. The company's name is Absci. Sean, appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
All right. With that, we'll wrap it up. But thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.